Every great transformation begins with a single decision, a shift so profound that it alters the course of your entire life. For John D. Rockefeller, the man who rose from humble beginnings to become the wealthiest individual of his era, that shift was not luck, not circumstance, not even talent. It was mindset. The way he thought, the way he approached obstacles, and the way he interpreted setbacks shaped a destiny that seemed impossible for someone born into scarcity. His story is not just about wealth, it's about the mental frameworks that allowed him to dominate in a world of uncertainty. And when you understand this mindset, you realize that success is not about resources, but about resourcefulness. Not about conditions, but about control. The secret is in how you think. Most people live as if life is happening to them. They react to setbacks, they complain about lack of opportunity, they crumble when circumstances don't go their way. Rockefeller thought differently. He believed that every challenge concealed within it an advantage, that every downturn was simply the soil in which fortune was planted. Imagine a world where instead of being rattled by problems, you are energized by them, where obstacles don't signal defeat, but direction. This is the shift that changes everything. The ordinary mind sees problems. The extraordinary mind sees possibilities. Rockefeller trained himself to be extraordinary. Picture a boy not born into wealth but into hardship, his father absent, his mother stretched thin, money scarce. By all appearances, he was destined for an average life, maybe worse. But here's the difference. While others around him accepted limitation as fate, Rockefeller asked himself a different question. How do I turn limitation into leverage? While others saw scarcity as a prison, he saw it as training. Every difficulty became a lesson, every responsibility an opportunity to grow sharper, stronger, more disciplined. This mindset did not wait for perfect conditions, it created them. Think about your own life. How often do you wait for the right time, the right opportunity, the right circumstances before you move forward? Rockefeller didn't wait. He began with what he had, where he was, and most importantly, with the mind he chose to cultivate. When you realize that the world doesn't owe you ease, that obstacles are not roadblocks but stepping stones, you step into the same mental arena that the greatest achievers in history occupied. The truth is, life will test you. It will hand you setbacks, disappointments, and losses. But those tests are not punishments. They are invitations to develop the one thing that matters most, resilience. And resilience, when paired with vision, becomes unstoppable. What made Rockefeller different was not that he avoided chaos, but that he thrived in it. At a time when the American economy was uncertain, when industries rose and collapsed overnight, he trained his mind not to panic, but to calculate. Where others saw disaster, he saw patterns. Where others lost everything, he built an empire. Why? Because he had mastered the shift from emotional reaction to strategic response. Imagine being the calmest person in the storm, the one who doesn't fold when the world shakes, the one who can look at the same disaster as everyone else and find the seed of opportunity hidden in plain sight. That is not luck, that is mindset. You see, the world will always give you reasons to doubt yourself. People will criticize you, circumstances will scare you, failures will tempt you to quit. But the strongest individuals, the Rockefellers, the leaders, the visionaries, don't crumble under those pressures. They expect them, they prepare for them, and they train their minds to turn every negative into fuel. This is the first step toward the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop letting problems define you and start letting them refine you. Don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Where is the advantage hidden inside this challenge? The ordinary person spends their life trying to avoid discomfort. Rockefeller leaned into it. He saw discomfort as proof that he was on the path of growth. He embraced responsibility at a young age, mastered the discipline of keeping records, built habits of precision and order. These habits weren't glamorous, but they laid the foundation for a mind that could handle enormous complexity without breaking. If you want to transform your life, start with this truth. The small disciplines you adopt today shape the massive opportunities you can seize tomorrow. The seed of greatness is planted in the soil of consistency. Now imagine this. Two people face the same setback. One collapses, gives up, convinces themselves the world is unfair. The other, like Rockefeller, analyzes, adapts and keeps moving forward. Both encounter the same reality, but their interpretations create entirely different futures. That is the power of mindset. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control the meaning you assign to it, and meaning determines destiny. Rockefeller did not have better luck than others. He had a better interpretation of reality, and because of that, he built a reality others could not even imagine. So ask yourself, what mindset are you carrying into your challenge? Do you see obstacles as confirmation that you're not enough, or do you see them as training for the strength you'll need later? Do you treat setbacks as losses, or do you treat them as lessons? Rockefeller chose the latter, and that choice, repeated over and over, turned him from a boy of scarcity into a man of abundance. This is the shift that changes everything. ChatGPT said, every great mind that ever reshaped history carried within it an unwavering belief that how you think is more important than what you face. Rockefeller embodied this at every stage of his journey. Most men of his era were tossed back and forth by the waves of uncertainty, the fluctuations of the market, the shifting tides of politics, the fears of scarcity, but Rockefeller was different. He trained himself to remain still while others panicked, to stay disciplined when others lost focus. He realized early that emotions cloud judgment, and judgment is everything when decisions determine fortune. Imagine standing in the midst of financial chaos, newspapers screaming about collapse, men shouting in panic as fortunes disappear, and yet remaining calm, quiet, calculating, seeing what others miss. That was Rockefeller. He believed that composure was not just a personal trait, but a weapon. There is a lesson here most people ignore. Opportunities are not seen by the frantic, they are seen by the steady. When fear grips the masses, vision belongs to the few who do not allow fear to dictate their success. Rockefeller once said that he always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity. Think about the depth of that mindset. While others mourned their losses, he asked, where is the hidden advantage? Where is the opening? And he found it. Again and again, crisis became the soil for his empire. It was not the absence of fear that set him apart, but his ability to master it, to convert it into clarity. The same storm that destroyed others became the wind that carried him forward. Now ask yourself, how do you respond to chaos? Do you shrink, complain, wait for the storm to pass? Or do you step into it with the confidence that you can navigate through it? Rockefeller's genius was not that he avoided storms, but that he expected them. He understood that life is not built on certainties, but on uncertainties, and he trained his mind to adapt faster than events unfolded. That is what resilience truly means. Not wishing life to be easy, but preparing yourself to remain unshaken when it is not. This is the shift. Stop resisting difficulty, and start anticipating it. Those who are prepared for hardship never break when it arrives. Think of the boy Rockefeller was taught by a mother who drilled into him discipline, thrift, responsibility. While others his age were careless, spending freely and playing recklessly, he saved every cent, recorded every transaction, built the habit of accounting for his life. These small acts of order became the foundation of massive stability. Most people dismiss small disciplines because they do not produce instant results. Rockefeller knew better. He understood that the man who cannot master pennies will never master millions. The seed of greatness is planted long before the fruit appears, and only those with patience and discipline will harvest it. When Rockefeller entered the business world, he carried this mindset, like armor. He was not the loudest, not the most flamboyant, not the most charming. He was steady, reliable and utterly unshaken. In a world where most tried to impress, he built trust by being precise. In a world where others gambled, he calculated. His partners and competitors noticed something unusual about him. He did not react to pressure the way others did. While others raged, panicked, or overextended themselves, he remained calm, composed, deliberate. That is why opportunities gravitated toward him. People trust stability. They follow those who don't collapse under weight. And this is true in your own life. If you want to be valued, if you want to command respect, Don't be the one who reacts impulsively. Be the one who stays unshaken. Imagine for a moment a negotiation. Two men sit across from each other. One is nervous, desperate, quick to speak, quick to reveal his intentions. The other, calm, quiet, patient. Which one has the advantage? Always the one who waits. Always the one who lets the other man reveal himself. Rockefeller mastered this principle. He used silence as power, patience as leverage. He could outwait anyone because he was not ruled by restlessness. This is another dimension of the mindset shift. Stop being in a hurry. Desperation makes you weak. Calm makes you strong. The man who can wait, who can endure the silence, will always control the room. But beyond composure and patience, there was something even deeper. Rockefeller believed that control begins with the mind, and the mind must be trained like a muscle. He practiced restraint. He did not spend impulsively. He did not speak recklessly. He did not allow anger or pride to dictate his decisions. He lived as if every action was a test of discipline, and over time that discipline gave him unmatched strength. Most people seek comfort. He sought control. Most chase pleasure. He pursued power of the mind. That is why his results were unlike anyone else's. You cannot live like the masses and expect the results of the extraordinary. Think of the times in your own life when you reacted too quickly. An insult that made you lash out, a fear that made you retreat, an opportunity missed because you panicked. Every one of those moments proves the same truth. Reactions cost you. They drain your energy. They cloud your judgment. They make you weaker. But when you train yourself to pause, to detach, to remain composed, you begin to move through life differently. You stop being controlled by events and start controlling your responses. And when you control your responses, you control your destiny. Rockefeller's life was proof of this. He was not merely a businessman. He was a master of his own mind. The beauty of this shift is that it does not require wealth, education, or privilege. It requires choice. The choice to remain calm when others panic. The choice to save when others spend. The choice to prepare when others procrastinate. The choice to stay silent when others shout. These choices, repeated daily, transform ordinary men into extraordinary forces. Rockefeller chose them, and the world bent around his discipline. You can choose them too. That is the true legacy of his mindset. It is not locked in history. It is available to anyone willing to train their mind as he did. The question is, will you continue living at the mercy of your emotions, or will you master them and step into the calm power that commands respect, builds empires, and shapes history? The decision, as it always was, is yours. In a world filled with noise, Rockefeller discovered that silence was his greatest weapon. Most men of his era were desperate to be heard. They filled the air with boasts, promises, arguments and justifications, trying to prove themselves in boardrooms and on trading floors. But Rockefeller rarely wasted words. He understood a timeless truth: the one who speaks the least often holds the most control. His silence was not absence, it was presence. It forced others to reveal themselves, to wonder what he was thinking, to question their own assumptions, and in that gap of uncertainty, Rockefeller gained leverage. Silence turned him into a mystery, and mystery turned into power. Think of how people react when you remain quiet in a conversation. They begin to fill the space, to explain more than they intended, to expose their insecurities, their true motives, their weaknesses. This was Rockefeller's advantage. He listened while others spoke themselves into weakness. He observed while others revealed their strategies. He rarely gave away more than necessary. And when he finally spoke, his words carried weight because they were so rare. The world learned that if Rockefeller said something, it mattered. That restraint gave him authority. No loudness could ever create. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it with chatter, explanations, excuses. This weakness exposes them. Rockefeller embraced silence. He could sit in a negotiation, calm and composed, while the other side unraveled under the weight of their own impatience. They would speak more, offer more, compromise more, simply to escape the discomfort of his stillness. He didn't need to argue to win. His silence won for him. Imagine the power of being able to hold silence without fear. It makes you immovable. It makes others bend toward you. Rockefeller mastered this art, and it gave him dominance in every room. But silence was more than a tactic for him. it was a discipline. By choosing silence, he conserved his energy. He did not waste it on meaningless debates, on defending himself from petty accusations, on chasing validation through words. He reserved his speech for action, for strategy, for decisions that mattered. This made him efficient, focused, unstoppable. Words are energy, and those who scatter them recklessly weaken themselves. Rockefeller hoarded his words like he hoarded his resources, strategically, deliberately, only spending when it multiplied his power. Ask yourself, how often do you speak just to be heard? How often do you defend yourself unnecessarily, argue over trivialities, explain your plans to people who neither support nor understand them? Every word spent on proving yourself is energy wasted. Rockefeller did not need to prove, he needed only to execute. His silence kept him focused on the goal, instead of distracted by noise. That is a principle you can apply immediately. Stop announcing your every move, stop explaining your vision to those who won't see it. Build quietly, move silently, let results make the noise. Silence also gave Rockefeller something even more valuable, clarity. While others were busy speaking, he was listening. He was observing the smallest details: tone, hesitation, contradiction. He noticed what others missed because he wasn't trying to dominate the room with noise. He learned far more by staying quiet than others ever learned by speaking loudly. This is the overlooked advantage of silence. It turns you into a strategist. You gain information without revealing your own, and in any arena, business, relationships, life itself, information is power. Imagine sitting across from someone in conflict. They expect you to lash out, to defend yourself, to argue. Instead, you remain silent, calm, composed. Their words echo in the air unanswered. Soon doubt creeps into their mind. Did they go too far? Do you know something they don't? Silence unsettles because it cannot be controlled. Rockefeller knew this. He let others reveal their insecurities, while he kept his hidden. He turned silence into a shield that no criticism could pierce. He turned it into a sword that cut through the defenses of others without ever lifting his voice. But silence is not just about withholding words. It is about mastering the urge to react. The insult that demands retaliation, the criticism that provokes anger, the pressure that begs for a quick response. All of these moments test your discipline. Most people fail. They react instantly, giving away their power. Rockefeller didn't. He held his tongue, held his posture, held his calm. By refusing to react, he maintained control. This is why his enemies found him so difficult to defeat. They could not provoke him. They could not pull him into emotional traps. His silence disarmed them before the battle even began. There is another layer to this truth. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates influence. People are drawn to what they cannot easily understand. Rockefeller's restraint made him enigmatic. Others projected power onto him because they could not see his full hand. They filled the silence with their own fears, assumptions, and doubts. This is the paradox of silence. By saying less, people think you know more. By revealing less, people imagine you are greater. Rockefeller used this to his advantage again and again. He did not need to shout about his strength. His silence made others assume it. So how do you practice this? Begin with restraint. Resist the urge to speak first, to fill the void, to respond impulsively. In conversations, pause. In conflicts, hold your ground. In negotiations, wait. Let others reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. Next, guard your plans. Do not announce every intention, every dream, every step. Work quietly, build steadily, and let results speak when the time is right. Finally, master your reactions. When provoked, do not give them your energy. When insulted, remain calm. When pressured, hold silence. Each time you do this, you build discipline. Each time you do this, you build power. Rockefeller's silence was not weakness, it was control, it was presence, it was the quiet dominance that comes from knowing you do not need to prove yourself. That is the mindset you must cultivate if you want to command respect without asking for it. In a world that cannot stop talking, silence becomes the loudest statement, and when you master it, you, like Rockefeller, will discover that the less you say, the more power you hold. The battlefield is never outside first, it is inside. Rockefeller knew this better than anyone. His wealth, his empire, his influence, none of it could have existed if he had not first mastered his mind. The untrained mind is restless, fragile, and reactive. It spins in fear, it clings to doubt, it surrenders to impulse. But the trained mind is calm, steady, and unshakable. Rockefeller trained his mind like a warrior trains his body. He understood that success is not a matter of chance, but of discipline, and that discipline begins with the thoughts you allow and the emotions you command. He refused to be a prisoner of his own impulses. Instead, he built an inner fortress that no external storm could break. Most people lose not because of circumstances, but because of themselves. Their fear stops them before failure does. Their anger ruins relationships before enemies do. Their doubt cripples them before obstacles even matter. Rockefeller refused to let his own mind become his enemy. He replaced fear with faith in his ability to adapt. He replaced anger with deliberate calculation. He replaced doubt with discipline. This training of the mind gave him resilience in moments when others broke apart. He was not immune to stress, but he was immune to letting stress control him. That is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Think about the last time you let emotion dictate your actions. Maybe you lashed out in anger, made a choice from fear, quit too early, because doubt convinced you it was hopeless. Each of those moments is proof of how fragile the untrained mind is. Rockefeller would not allow himself such weakness. He paused before reacting. He breathed before responding. He assessed before acting. This gave him a calmness that seemed almost unnatural to others. But it was not a gift. It was training. He rehearsed self-control every day, until it became his default state. The lesson is simple but powerful. If you do not train your mind will betray you. Training begins in small habits. Rockefeller built discipline by living with order and precision. He accounted for every cent, every detail, every decision. To some this seemed obsessive, but he knew that discipline in small matters strengthens you for large ones. If you can master yourself in the minor trials, you will not collapse in the major ones. This is the secret to calm under fire. It is not built in crisis. It is built in routine. The man who trains himself daily is unshaken when the storm arrives. The man who drifts daily is destroyed when the storm arrives. Discipline decides which one you are. Gratitude was another weapon Rockefeller used to train his mind. He chose to focus on opportunity rather than scarcity, on what could be done rather than what could not. Most people are consumed by what they lack. Their minds spiral in complaints and comparisons, leaving no space for action. Rockefeller refused that trap. By practicing gratitude, he cultivated clarity. Gratitude clears away bitterness and sharpens vision. It keeps you calm because it shifts your attention from what you cannot control to what you already have and can use. Gratitude is not sentimental, it is strategic. It builds resilience because it starves fear and feeds focus. Detachment was his other discipline. He separated himself from the noise of emotion, from the temporary rush of feelings, joy, sadness, anger, fear. He experienced them, but they never dictated him. He understood that emotions are fleeting, and if you build your life on them, you build on sand. He built on stone. He trained himself to feel deeply, yet act deliberately. This gave him control in moments that destroyed others. Imagine being able to stand in chaos, feel fear rising in your chest, yet still act with calm precision. That was Rockefeller, and that can be you, if you learn to detach, not by denying emotions, but by mastering them. The mind, like the body, grows stronger through resistance. Every setback, every insult, every failure is resistance training for the mind. Rockefeller treated them that way. He did not collapse under difficulty. He used difficulty to become tougher. This is why crises elevated him, instead of destroying him. He trained himself to see every challenge as practice, and because he treated every challenge as practice, he became invincible in the real battle. The truth is, life will test you whether you are ready or not. The question is, will you use the test to grow, or will you let it break you? Rockefeller chose growth, again and again. Imagine a storm raging. Most people are tossed by the winds, dragged by the current, broken by the force. But a few stand still, grounded, steady. They do not fight the storm, they let it pass around them. That was Rockefeller. He did not waste energy resisting the inevitable. He stood firm, knowing his roots were deep. That steadiness made him unshakable. And this is the mindset you must cultivate. Stop demanding life to be calm,
and instead train yourself to remain calm no matter what life brings. The storm is not the problem. Your reaction is. Train your mind, and the storm loses its power. So how do you train? Begin small. Wake up earlier than you want. Do the task you are tempted to avoid. Stay silent when you want to argue. Save when you want to spend. Follow through when you want to quit. Each small act of discipline rewires your mind. Each time you refuse to be ruled by impulse, you strengthen control. Over time, this builds into unshakable mental toughness. Then, when real pressure arrives, you are not shaken. You are prepared. Calmness becomes your natural state, not your forced one. This was Rockefeller's hidden advantage. His wealth was not his true treasure. His unshakable mind was. Because once you master your mind, no setback can destroy you. No insult can weaken you. No chaos can bend you. You walk through life with quiet power, with calm confidence, with a presence that others cannot explain. They wonder how nothing seems to rattle you, why you move steadily while they panic. The answer is training. The answer is discipline. The answer is the shift from being controlled by your mind to controlling it. That is the shift Rockefeller made, and that is the shift that can change everything for you.
Pressure is the crucible where strength is revealed. Many dream of greatness until the moment life presses down on them, until chaos strips away the comfort they rely on. Then, most fold. They panic, they complain, they freeze. John D. Rockefeller built his empire in one of the most volatile periods of American history, yet his defining trait was composure. When markets collapsed, when industries crumbled, when competitors panicked, Rockefeller remained unshaken. He carried himself with the calm certainty of a man who had already rehearsed the storm in his mind. Pressure did not surprise him because he expected it. This was his advantage. Where others resisted reality, he prepared for it, and when reality struck, he stood tall while the rest scattered. Think of what happens when pressure arrives in your own life. The bills pile up, deadlines loom, people disappoint you, plans unravel. Most people approach life as if it should run smoothly, and when it doesn't, they collapse under the weight of unmet expectation. But pressure is not the exception, it is the rule. Rockefeller understood this. He anticipated resistance, setbacks, chaos. He conditioned his mind to remain steady when the ground shook beneath his feet. That conditioning gave him dominance. The man who does not panic under pressure becomes the one others look to for leadership, for direction, for strength. Calmness in chaos is power, and Rockefeller wielded it flawlessly. Picture a battlefield where soldiers are scrambling, shouting, losing control. In the center stands one commander, silent, composed, issuing clear instructions. Who holds the power in that moment? Not the loudest, not the most frantic, but the one who remains calm. Rockefeller was that commander in the battlefield of business. His silence in chaos unnerved competitors and inspired confidence in allies. His refusal to be rattled made him unbreakable. This is a principle you must adopt if you want influence, if you want respect. Train yourself to stay calm when others lose themselves. Pressure does not create weakness, it reveals it. And when you respond with calm, you reveal strength few can match. Why do most crumble under pressure? Because they resist it. They expect life to follow their plan, and when it doesn't, they fight reality itself. But Rockefeller accepted reality. He knew control over events was limited, but control over his response was absolute. That shift in perspective made him unstoppable. When competitors lost everything in downturns, he used those downturns to expand. While others froze in fear, he acted strategically. He was not stronger than them physically, he was stronger mentally. He had trained himself to detach from panic, to separate emotion from action, and in doing so he turned pressure into fuel. Ask yourself, when life tests you, do you see it as punishment or as preparation? The untrained mind panics, but the disciplined mind calculates. The storm is the same for everyone, but the response determines the outcome. Rockefeller's empire grew in storms because he trained himself to remain steady when others broke. That is the lesson. Train for adversity before it arrives. Expect resistance. Anticipate setbacks. Prepare your mind for uncertainty So when it comes, you are not surprised, you are ready. Composure under pressure begins in small moments. Rockefeller did not wake up one day immune to chaos. He built that resilience through daily discipline. Every cent he saved, every record he kept, every decision he analyzed, sharpened his ability to think clearly under stress. Discipline in small things builds strength for big things. If you want to remain calm in major crises, start by mastering yourself in minor inconvenience. The long line at the store, the delayed response, the unexpected change in plans. These are opportunities to train composure. Most waste them by reacting emotionally. Rockefeller used every moment as practice, and when true storms came, he was unmovable. Consider this: people follow strength they cannot explain. When everyone else is panicking and one man remains calm, he becomes magnetic. His presence commands trust. That was Rockefeller. His calmness under pressure gave him authority without words. The same can be true for you. If you learn to control yourself when others cannot, you become the anchor in every room, the one people rely on, the one people respect. Calm is not weakness, it is dominance. The ability to remain unmoved while others collapse is a signal of mastery. The world is not going to hand you peace, it is going to hand you problems. Rockefeller did not build peace by escaping problems, he built peace by mastering himself within them. He treated pressure as inevitable, not optional, and because of that, he was never surprised by it. Imagine if you adopted that same mindset. No more panic when things go wrong. No more complaining when life gets hard. Instead, calm acceptance, strategic response, and steady execution. The storms would no longer break you, they would elevate you. This is the shift you must embrace. Stop wishing for ease. Start training for difficulty. Life will test you, and when it does, your reaction will reveal whether you are ordinary or extraordinary. Rockefeller proved that composure under pressure is not just survival, it is leverage. It turns chaos into opportunity, fear into clarity, crisis into growth. Most people panic and lose. A few remain calm and win. Which will you be? The one who crumbles under the weight of pressure, or the one who stands unshaken and uses that pressure to rise higher? The choice, as always, belongs to you. One of the most liberating truths Rockefeller lived by was this: suffering comes not from what happens to you, but from clinging to what you cannot control. The man who insists that the world bend to his will always be broken by its resistance. The man who flows with reality, adjusting, adapting, and redirecting, becomes indestructible. Rockefeller learned early that the market, politics, competitors, even fate itself, could shift in ways he could never predict or control. Instead of wasting his energy fighting against these forces, he conserved it for what he could control: his mind, his discipline, his decisions. This detachment from the illusion of control gave him a calmness and strength few ever achieved. He understood that peace is not found in domination of circumstances, but in mastery of self. Think about how most people live. They fixate on outcomes, cling to expectations, demand that life deliver according to their plans, and when it doesn't, they crumble. Their emotions spiral, their confidence collapses, their energy is drained. Rockefeller did the opposite. He built his life around the principle of control and release. Control what you can, release what you can't. By refusing to waste energy on the uncontrollable, he always had energy left to act on the controllable. This is why he thrived where others faltered. While competitors cursed the market, he strategized. While others dwelled on losses, he prepared for gain. His detachment from outcomes gave him freedom to move without fear. Imagine holding sand tightly in your fist. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your finger. That is how most people treat life. They grip tightly, desperate to control every detail, and in doing so, lose everything. Now imagine holding that same sand with an open hand. It rests with you naturally, effortlessly. That was Rockefeller's mindset. He did not grip with desperation. He held life with calm openness. He knew things would come and go. People would rise and fall. Markets would crash and recover. His focus was never on controlling the tides, but on mastering his ability to navigate them. That is why nothing broke him. He flowed like water, steady, relentless, unstoppable. This philosophy of letting go
is not weakness, it is strength. Weakness is needing the world to obey you. Strength is moving forward, regardless of what the world throws at you. Rockefeller's empire was not the result of perfect conditions. It was built precisely because he could keep building when conditions were imperfect. He never demanded the path to be smooth. He trained himself to walk even when it was jagged. He never demanded people to always be fair. He prepared himself to move forward, even when they were. This is what letting go really means. Refusing to tie your peace to external forces and anchoring it instead in your internal control. Ask yourself, how much energy have you wasted stressing about what you cannot change? The past you replay in your head, the criticism you obsess over, the disappointments you relive. None of it is within your control, yet it consumes you, and because it consumes you, it weakens you. Rockefeller refused to be consumed. He redirected his focus to the present, to the actions still within his grasp. He knew that what mattered was not what had happened, but what he chose to do next. That is the secret. Power is always in the next move, never in the last one. When you let go of what is gone, you reclaim the energy to act decisively in what is still possible. There is a deep freedom in this mindset. When you no longer cling to rigid expectations, life loses its power to shatter you. If things go your way, you move forward. If they don't, you still move forward. You are no longer fragile, because your peace is not built on conditions, it is built on discipline. This is why Rockefeller could face losses without despair, setbacks without paralysis. He did not confuse temporary outcomes with permanent defeat. He saw every event as information, as a signal for adjustment, and because he did not cling, he was always free to adapt. Adaptability is power, and detachment is its source. Consider the river. It does not demand that the rocks move aside. It does not resist the mountains in its path. It flows, it bends. It carves its way with patience and persistence. Over time it shapes the landscape itself. That was Rockefeller. He did not waste energy raging at obstacles. He flowed around them until they no longer mattered. His strength was not in brute force, but in unshakable persistence, born of detachment. He trusted that as long as he kept moving, as long as he refused to break, the path would form beneath him. Detachment does not mean apathy. Rockefeller cared deeply about his work, his purpose, his legacy, but he refused to let his identity be bound to things outside his control. He could suffer temporary loss without losing himself. He could endure setbacks without being defined by them. That is what true strength looks like. Not coldness, not indifference, but composure rooted in clarity. He understood the line between what belongs to you and what doesn't, and he stayed on his side of it. The world could rage, collapse, or resist, but within himself he remained steady, and that steadiness is what built everything. So how do you practice this in your own life? Begin with awareness. The next time you find yourself angry, anxious, or stressed, pause and ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. Stop pouring energy into what you cannot change. Redirect it toward what you can. Start small. The traffic you can't move, the delay you can't prevent, the words someone else speaks. Instead of reacting, observe and release. Over time this practice builds resilience, and with resilience you gain freedom. Freedom from being tossed around by every circumstance. Freedom to remain focused on what actually matters. Freedom to keep moving forward, no matter what. This was Rockefeller's secret power. He did not fight the world to make it perfect. He mastered himself to move through it, regardless of its imperfections. That is the mindset shift you must embrace. Stop clinging. Stop resisting. Start flowing. Let go of what you cannot control, and you will discover a strength that nothing can break. You will move with peace, with power, with persistence, and in that unshakable calm, you will find what Rockefeller found. The freedom to build something greater than circumstance, greater than opinion, greater than
Real power never announces itself. It does not seek applause. It does not beg for recognition. It does not advertise its every move. It simply acts, strategically, decisively, and lets results speak louder than words ever could. Rockefeller lived by this law, while competitors boasted, exaggerated, and flaunted their intentions. He moved quietly. While others announced plans that never materialized, Rockefeller built in silence, Until his results were undeniable, his restraint made him dangerous. His quiet made him unpredictable. By the time others realized what he was doing, it was already too late. He had positioned himself so far ahead that they could not catch him. This discipline of moving in silence was one of his greatest advantages, and it is a discipline you can cultivate too. Think of how most people live. They crave validation at every step. They tell friends, family, strangers on social media about their goals, their projects, their dreams. They seek praise for intentions rather than results. But this constant exposure weakens them. It invites doubt, resistance, criticism. It creates pressure that distracts from execution. Rockefeller avoided this trap entirely. He understood that the more you announce, the more vulnerable you become. Words alert rivals, feed critics, and drain focus. Silence keeps you sharp. Silence keeps you protected. Silence lets your energy flow into work instead of into explanation. That is why Rockefeller built empires while others wasted themselves on appearances. Imagine a chess player revealing his next move before he makes it. Foolish, predictable, easy to count. Yet this is how most people operate in life. They reveal too much, too early. Rockefeller was the opposite. He concealed his strategy until it was complete. His rivals never knew exactly what he was planning, and that uncertainty gave him leverage. Silence forces others to guess, to doubt, to miscalculate. While they speculated, he executed. While they wasted time on rumors, he secured realities. This is the principle you must adopt. Stop telling everyone what you are going to do. Start doing it quietly. Let them find out only when it is too late to stop you. But moving in silence was not only about strategy, it was also about humility and focus. Rockefeller did not need constant recognition. He did not need to prove himself through noise. He was too busy building. He let success be the proof. He let results be the announcement. There is a profound freedom in this. When you stop needing external applause, you liberate yourself to focus on the only thing that matters: execution. Talk feeds ego. Work builds legacy. Rockefeller chose legacy. Ask yourself, how much of your energy has been wasted trying to convince people, trying to be seen, trying to prove your worth before the results are ready? Every time you explain instead of act, you lose momentum. Every time you announce instead of build, you expose yourself unnecessarily. Moving in silence does not mean isolation. It means prioritization. It means channeling your energy into what creates change rather than what creates attention. Attention fades, results remain. Rockefeller understood this, and it made him unstoppable. Silence also creates intrigue. When you do not reveal your moves, people begin to wonder. They speculate. They invent stories. They imagine possibilities. The less they know, the more they assume, and often, they assume you are greater than you are. This perception works in your favor. People fear what they cannot see, respect what they cannot fully understand. Rockefeller's quietness amplified his aura of control. His mystery magnified his influence. He did not need to demand respect. His silence commanded it. Now imagine applying this to your own life. Instead of telling everyone about your goals, you work in silence. Instead of defending yourself against criticism, you stay silent and let your results answer. Instead of boasting about your potential, you let your progress reveal it piece by piece. Over time, people will notice. They will wonder how you move so calmly, how you achieve without noise, how you rise without announcing it. And in that mystery, you will find power, not the shallow power of attention, but the deep power of control. Rockefeller knew that the loudest are rarely the strongest. The ones who boast the most are often hiding the least. Real strength does not need to shout. It moves quietly, strategically, efficiently. This is why he could outmaneuver men who were louder, more flamboyant, more aggressive. Their noise blinded them. His silence sharpened him. This is the difference between those who talk about doing great things and those who actually do them. Rockefeller belonged to the second category, and so can you if you embrace the discipline of silence. So how do you cultivate this? Begin by resisting the urge to announce. When you have a goal, keep it to yourself. When you have a plan, execute it quietly. When you feel the need to prove yourself with words, hold back and prove yourself with results instead. Next, stop over-explaining.
You do not owe everyone an explanation for your decisions, your path, your vision. The less you justify, the more powerful you appear. Finally, redirect your energy. Every moment you spend speaking about what you will do is a moment you could spend doing it. Trade noise for action, trade exposure for progress, trade validation for execution. Rockefeller's silence was not emptiness, it was strategy, it was focus, it was humility, and above all, it was power. He let others talk, argue, and expose themselves while he worked. Then, when his work was complete, it spoke so loudly that no argument could drown it. This is the lesson you must carry. Stop talking about the life you plan to build. Build it quietly, build it relentlessly, build it until the results speak for you. Because in the end, true power moves in silence, and by the time the world notices, you are already too far ahead. Every journey of mastery must end where it began, with the mind. Rockefeller's story is not just about wealth or empire, it is about the inner transformation that made those things possible. The mindset shift that changes everything is not complicated, but it is the decision to master yourself before you try to master the world, to control your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your focus. Most people spend their lives trying to bend circumstances to their will. Rockefeller bent himself first. He became unshakable on the inside, and the outside bent to him as a result. That is the ultimate lesson. That is the inheritance you can take from his life. Think back on the principles that shaped him: composure under pressure, detachment from what cannot be controlled, silence as a weapon, discipline in the small things, a refusal to seek approval. Each one of these was not just a tactic, but a reflection of his central belief that power begins within. While others wasted themselves chasing validation, fighting criticism, or drowning in emotion, Rockefeller kept his energy contained, directed, and precise. He conserved it for building. He refused to scatter it on trivialities, and because of this, he could endure what others could not. His wealth was not born of fortune, it was born of a mindset that few are willing to cultivate. Now imagine if you applied this mindset to your own life. Imagine walking through each day, unaffected by insults, unbroken by setbacks, unmoved by chaos. Imagine no longer being a prisoner to anger, fear, or doubt. Imagine carrying yourself with a calm presence, so strong that people can feel it without you saying a word. That is not fantasy. It is discipline. It is the result of training your mind the way Rockefeller trained him. And when you do, you will discover what he discovered, that the true game is not external success, but internal control. Master the first, and the second follows naturally. The world respects those who cannot be shaken. People are drawn to stability because it is so rare. In every crisis, most crumble, and the few who remain calm stand out. In every crowd, most talk, and the few who remain silent gain attention without asking for it. In every industry, most seek shortcuts, and the few who practice discipline rise up. This is why Rockefeller became not just wealthy, but influential. His presence commanded respect before his words were spoken. His calm unsettled rivals before deals began. His silence carried more authority than their noise ever could. He embodied the truth that strength does not always roar. It often whispers, and that whisper is enough to move empires. But here is what you must understand. This mindset is not reserved for history's giants. It is not reserved for Rockefeller alone. It is available to you, if you are willing to do the work, if you are willing to discipline your mind when no one is watching, if you are willing to choose restraint when you want to react, if you are willing to keep building when criticism tempts you to stop. Most will not do. Most will remain fragile, reactive, desperate for validation. But the few who do, the few who adopt this mindset, will rise above the rest, not because the world is easier for them, but because they are stronger within it. Think of your own story. The insults, the failures, the pressures, the disappointments, they will not stop coming. The illusion is that one day, life will become smooth. It won't. Rockefeller never expected it to. Instead, he trained himself to walk steadily, no matter how rough the ground became. That is the shift. Stop waiting for life to be easy, and start preparing yourself to be strong. Stop praying for calm waters, and start building a mind that sails through storms. When you do this, nothing outside of you can take away your peace, your clarity, your strength. And when nothing can take it away, you become untouchable. The ultimate power is not in wealth or status, It is in presence, a presence so firm, so disciplined, so calm, that it cannot be rattled. A presence that commands respect without asking, that inspires without speaking, that influences without effort. Rockefeller understood this. His fortune may have been measured in dollars, but his true wealth was his unshakable state of mind. It was this that allowed him to rise from nothing, to endure endless criticism, to outlast every rival. His empire was a reflection of his mind, organized, disciplined, stable, unbreakable, and that same empire-building mind is available to you. So the question is not whether you can achieve it. The question is whether you will train for it. Will you practice restraint when insulted? Will you remain calm when pressured? Will you let silence guard your power instead of wasting it in noise? Will you detach from what you cannot control and pour yourself into what you can? Each choice is small, but repeated, it becomes the fortress of your mind. And once that fortress is built, nothing outside can bring it down. That is the mindset shift. That is the transformation. That is the difference between living as a puppet of circumstance or as the master of your own destiny. In the end, Rockefeller's life proves one truth. The world bends to those who first bend themselves. Control your mind, and you control your life. Train your discipline, and you build your empire. Stay silent, stay calm, stay unshaken, and nothing can touch you. The storms will come, but you will walk through them untouched. The critics will speak, but your results will silence them. The pressure will rise, but you will remain steady. And in that steadiness lies the secret that changes everything. The same secret that transformed Rockefeller from a boy of scarcity into a man of unshakable power. The same secret that can transform you.
There comes a point in every journey where persistence is tested, where the noise of the world grows so loud that most people surrender to it. Rockefeller's life was a series of such moments. He was not handed certainty, he was handed volatility. The oil industry of his time was chaotic, full of speculation, instability, ruthless competition. Fortunes were made and lost overnight. Yet instead of being swallowed by that chaos, he transformed it into order, by cultivating a mindset that thrived not on what others thought of him, but on the clarity of his own purpose. While men around him were consumed by approval, by fear of judgment, by the need to prove themselves, Rockefeller anchored himself in one truth: validation from others is worthless compared to conviction within yourself. This is the shift that separates the powerful from the powerless. Most people live as slaves to opinion. They measure their worth by the reactions of others, bending and reshaping themselves to fit expectations. But Rockefeller never begged for approval. He was often criticized, sometimes vilified for the decisions he made, the empire he built, the scale of his ambition. Yet he never wavered. Why? Because he understood that progress invites criticism, that greatness always creates noise. Imagine trying to do something extraordinary while demanding universal applause. It is impossible. Those who wait for approval before they move will never move at all. Rockefeller moved without it. He realized early that no one's opinion could build his future for him, so he stopped giving their opinions the power to stop him. Consider this: when you seek approval, you place your happiness in someone else's hands. You allow their words to determine your worth. You become dependent, fragile, easily broken. But when you choose to validate yourself, you become untouchable. Rockefeller's confidence was not arrogance. It was self-reliance. He built his identity on discipline, on results, on vision, not on applause. That is why he could endure criticism without flinching, endure doubt without retreating, endure misunderstanding without feeling the need to defend himself. He understood a timeless principle: the world is slow to understand those who move ahead of it. The same voices that doubt you today will be the ones praising you tomorrow, but you must have the strength to walk through the doubt without needing their approval. Think about your own life. How often do you hesitate because you fear what others will say? How often do you dilute your vision because you want to be liked? This is the silent trap that kills greatness. The need for approval chains you to mediocrity. Rockefeller broke that chain by embracing the reality that not everyone will understand you, not everyone will support you, not everyone will like you, and that is not a problem. The goal is not to be liked. The goal is to be unshakable. The ones who matter will respect you not because you seek their validation, but because you don't need it. True strength is magnetic. It commands attention not by asking for it, but by embodying it. Imagine a man working tirelessly, building, planning, executing his vision around him. Whispers spread. Critics speak loudly. Rivals mock his methods. Does he stop? Does he defend himself? No. He continues forward as if the noise does not exist. That was Rockefeller. And in time the same critics who laughed could not deny the results standing before them. This is the lesson. Results silence doubt more effectively than arguments ever could. Do not waste your energy trying to convince people. Use that energy to build something undeniable. Let your success do the talking. That is how power operates. Approval is a currency of the weak. Self-belief is the currency of the strong. Rockefeller lived by this. He was not reckless. He listened, he evaluated, but he did not allow unqualified voices to steer his direction. He filtered noise through logic. If feedback was constructive, he took; if it was meaningless criticism, he discarded it without hesitation. This is the discipline you must master. Not all voices deserve your attention. Not all opinions deserve weight. The loudest critics are often the least qualified to judge. When you learn to separate signal from noise, you conserve your energy for what truly matters, and energy focused on the right things is unstoppable. The irony is this: the less you seek approval, the more respect you gain. People admire those who cannot be easily swayed, those who stand firm in their own values, those who walk a path with clarity, even when it is unpopular. We live in a world where most are desperate to fit in, desperate to be liked, desperate to conform. That desperation bleeds weakness. But when you refuse to bow to it, when you carry yourself with conviction, you stand apart, and that separation is where influence is born. Rockefeller didn't become a giant because everyone cheered for him. He became a giant because he kept moving forward when no one understood him. So ask yourself, are you building your life on borrowed opinions, or on your own conviction? Every time you seek approval, you surrender a piece of your power. Every time you pause to worry about what others think, you delay your progress. The mindset shift is simple, but not easy. Stop asking for permission, and start granting it to yourself. Stop needing to be understood and start being undeniable. Approval fades, but conviction endures. Rockefeller's empire was not built on applause. It was built on the discipline of a man who refused to let the noise of the world drown out his inner vision. That is the lesson you must carry. When you stop seeking approval, you start living freely. And when you live freely, you unlock the strength that changes everything. Criticism is the price of progress. Anyone who chooses to rise above mediocrity will inevitably attract it. John D. Rockefeller understood this truth more deeply than most. From the moment he began consolidating the oil industry, he was met with accusations, suspicion, and relentless judgment. Journalists attacked him, competitors despised him, even politicians sought to undermine him. Yet what made him powerful was not the absence of criticism, but the way he handled it. He never let other people's voices dictate his direction. He never gave their anger more power than his vision. Instead, he filtered criticism through logic, kept what was useful, and discarded the rest. He knew that if he tried to please everyone, he would achieve nothing, and so he chose the path of progress over popularity. This is where most people fail. The moment they hear disapproval, they retreat. A single insult is enough to shake their confidence. A harsh word can derail their momentum. They interpret criticism as truth instead of opinion. But Rockefeller knew better. He recognized that most criticism says more about the critic than about the target. Jealousy, insecurity, fear, these are the roots of destructive judgment. Why surrender your peace to voices that do not understand your path? Why allow strangers to shape your identity? Rockefeller didn't. He asked a simple question: does this criticism serve my growth, or does it serve their weakness? If it helped him improve, he listened. If it didn't, he ignored it entirely. Imagine a sculptor chiseling a block of stone. Passers-by stop to watch. Some admire, some offer suggestions, some mock. The sculptor does not abandon his work because of their work. He keeps shaping, guided by the vision in his mind, not the noise outside of it. Rockefeller lived this way. He let the noise swirl around him, but his focus remained on the masterpiece he was building. This is the mindset you must adopt. If you allow critics to break your rhythm,
you hand them control. But when you detach, when you keep moving regardless of what is said, you retain your power. Silence becomes your shield. Progress becomes your response. The truth is, there are two types of criticism: constructive and destructive. Constructive criticism comes from those who understand, who want you to grow, who see flaws you can correct. This you should welcome. Destructive criticism comes from envy, ignorance, or malice. This you must ignore. Rockefeller mastered the art of distinguishing between the two. He didn't waste energy fighting every accusation. He understood that responding to every critic is like pouring water into a sieve. It drains you endlessly with no result. Instead, he saved his energy for building, for creating, for executing his vision. And that is why his empire grew while his critics faded into irrelevance. Think about how you react when someone criticizes you. Do you immediately get defensive? Do you argue over explain, or feel the need to prove yourself? That is exactly what weakens you. Every defensive word is proof that their judgment has power over you. But imagine responding like Rockefeller, not with anger, not with panic, but with calm indifference. Imagine pausing, analyzing, asking, is this useful? If yes, learn from it. If not, discard it and move on. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, criticism loses its teeth. It becomes background noise, powerless to derail your focus. This is how you build unshakable confidence. Rockefeller faced relentless attacks in newspapers, painting him as a villain. He did not chase reporters to explain himself. He did not write rebuttals to every accusation. He simply kept building. He understood something profound. Results are louder than rebuttals. When you argue with critics, you elevate them. When you ignore them and succeed anyway, you silence. Your results will always speak louder than your words. This is why detachment from criticism is one of the most powerful traits you can cultivate. You do not need to win the argument. You need to win the outcome. Consider this. Every great visionary has faced resistance. Innovators, leaders, creators, all of them were doubted, mocked, or attacked. But history does not remember the critics. It remembers those who pressed forward despite the noise. Rockefeller's empire still stands as a symbol of power and organization. His critics, forgotten. Footnote: this is the reality you must embrace. Criticism is not a signal to stop. It is evidence that you are moving. If no one criticizes you, it likely means you are blending into mediocrity. But if people resist you, doubt you, or question you, it means you are ahead of them. That is the cost of progress. Do not run from it. Wear it as proof that you are on the right path. So how do you cultivate Rockefeller's composure in the face of criticism? It begins with detachment. When the words sting, pause, ask yourself, who is speaking? Do they understand my path? Do they live the life I aspire to? If not, their opinion has no weight. Next, practice silence. Not every attack deserves an answer. In fact, most do not. The less you respond, the more control you display. Finally, build self-conviction. The stronger your inner belief, the weaker the grip of outer voices. Confidence built on self-reliance is unshakable. When you know who you are, no one can tell you otherwise. Rockefeller never feared criticism, because he never gave it power. He saw it as inevitable, as natural as the wind. He let it blow past him while he stayed rooted. That is the mindset shift you must embrace. Stop trying to escape criticism. Stop craving universal approval. Start building so decisively that criticism becomes irrelevant. The world will always talk. Let them. You keep moving, because in the end, history remembers builders, not critics. And when your results stand tall, the voices that once tried to tear you down will fade into silence.